Who would believe that the original purpose of the group he first formed, the Guild's predecessor, the first 9 was to aid the weak? But it was true. He saved Momon when he was getting PKD constantly and was about to quit the game out of frustration. Next, he reached out to Bubbling Teapot, who couldn't find anyone to quest with due to her unfortunate appearance. Touch Me's lingering intentions wound around Sebas like an invisible chain. I guess this is a curse. That language was probably blasphemous. If any of the other inhabitants of the great tomb of Nazarick, those created by the 41 supreme beings, heard him, they might attack him for his disrespect. It isn't right to pity those who do not belong to Aints Ul Gown, he whispered gravely. That was completely natural. Everyone believed that disregarding outsiders was correct. However, certain members of Nazarick had been designed by their creators to be different, such as the head maid, Pestonia's puppy dog. For example, he received a report from Solution that Lupus Regina, one of the Pleiades, was getting along well with a girl in Khan. But Sebas knew that if the situation demanded it, she would cut that girl down with zero hesitation. It wasn't because she was cold-blooded. If a Supreme One ordered them to die, they had to die. And if they were ordered to kill someone, even a friend, they had to kill them immediately. That was true loyalty. Anyone who couldn't understand that received pity from their fellows. Making judgments based on foolish emotions was wrong. So what about me? Was the action I took correct? Sebas was chewing his lip over his worries when Solution came out of the room. Her face was expressionless as usual. How did it go? She has syphilis and 2 other STDs. She has multiple fractured ribs and fingers. Her tendons are severed in the right arm and left leg. Both her top and bottom front teeth are missing. Her organs seem to be functioning very well. She also has an anal fissure. She may be addicted to some kind of drug. Since she has innumerable bruises and lacerations, I'll take the liberty of omitting the details. Is there any other explanation you require? No, that's fine. There's only one important thing. Will she get better? Easily. Sebas had expected this immediate response. Using healing abilities, even someone with their limbs cut off could recover. So if Sebas used his Kai Kung, he could completely heal her physical damage. Actually, if all of Nazarick were in a state of emergency, and he hadn't been worried about intelligence leaks, he could have healed that old woman's twisted ankle earlier on the road. Despite the ability to restore strength, Kai Kung couldn't properly dispel poison or cure diseases. Sebas hadn't acquired those skills. That was why he needed Solution's help for this. Okay, please heal her. If you want someone who can use healing magic, it might be better to summon Mistress Pestonia. That won't be necessary. Solution, you have the appropriate magic scrolls, don't you? After she nodded, he continued, then please use those. Master Sebas, these scrolls were given to us by the Supreme Beings. I hardly think they should be used on the likes of humans. He was right. He probably needed to devise a different solution. First, they would heal her wounds to prevent her from dying. Then they would fix her poisoned and diseased status at some later point. The question was whether they had that much time. If she was nearing death due to her overall condition instead of merely her wounds, it would be pointless to restore her strength unless he did it permanently. Sebas hesitated, and then, in a steely voice that masked his inner feelings, told her do it. He thought he saw something reddish-black flicker in the back of Solution's narrowing eyes, but the change was hidden as she bowed her head. Understood. Should I restore her body back to its uninjured state, back to before any of those things were done to her? When Sebas nodded, she bowed politely. I'll do it right away. Then when you're done treating her, can I have you heat up some water and bathe her? I am going to go buy some food. There was no one else in the mansion who could make or required meals. If they didn't have a spare magic item that would render eating unnecessary, they would have to arrange food for the woman. Master Sebas. It's a simple matter to treat her body, but I can treat her mental distress. Pausing there, she looked straight at him. To care for her mental needs, I think summoning Lord Aints would be best. Shall I call him? This isn't important enough to have Lord Aints come personally. We can leave her mind as is. Solution made a deep bow, silently opened the door, and went inside. Watching her go, Sebas slowly leaned back against the wall. What should I do about her? The best would probably be to help the woman recover to some extent. Then, while the ruffian was still on the run and leading his friends on a chase, we could release her in a location of her choosing. Somewhere away from the royal capital would be best. Throwing her into the city would be dangerous and cruel. That wouldn't be aiding her at all. But was that really the right thing to do as the butler of the great tomb of Nazareth Sebastian? He exhaled deeply. How much easier would everything be if he could expel the other things built up inside him like that? But nothing changed. His thoughts were in turmoil, a white noise invading his consciousness. This is foolishness. Why would I for a human? He quit seeking an answer that wouldn't come and decided to start with something easy. It was only to buy time, but it was the best plan he could come up with for now. Solution lengthened her slender digits into tube-like shapes, a fraction of an inch wide. By nature, Solution was an amorphous slime, so she could alter her appearance quite radically. Changing the contour of her fingertips was a piece of cake. With a glance at the door, she keenly observed that Sebas wasn't present outside. She quietly approached the woman lying on the bed. I have permission from Master Sebas, so I'll promptly solve all this trouble. I am sure you're fine with that as well. You probably don't even know what's going on. Solution took the hand she hadn't transformed and reached inside her body to take out the scrolls she'd been keeping there. These scrolls weren't the only things she was secretly carrying. She contained not only consumable magic items, but also, of course, weapons and armor. She had enough room to swallow up several humans, so there was nothing surprising about that. Solution gazed at the unconscious woman. She wasn't the least bit interested in the woman's features. Solution had a single thought: she doesn't look very tasty. That was all. With this husk of a body, the woman probably wouldn't even struggle if she was melting in Solution's acid. Where was the fun in that? If I could have her as a toy after I finished healing her, I would understand Master Sebas' behavior, but she knew her boss's personality. He would never approve of that. Unless they were attacked on the road or something similar, he would never allow her to prey on humans. If he's acting on the Supreme One's instructions and was ordered to save her, I suppose I have to accept it. But is she really worth expending the Supreme One's precious assets? Is this human? Solution shook her head to clear her mind. Should I just eat her before Master Sebas returns? Solution broke a seal and unrolled a scroll. The scroll contained Heal, an elite Tier 6 recovery spell. It restored a great deal of vitality and cured almost all negative status effects, including sickness. Usually, only those with a class that allowed them to cast the spell normally could use the corresponding scrolls. To use Faith Caster spell scrolls, one would need to attain a priest-type class. More specifically, the spell had to be on the list of available spells that the class could learn. However, some thief-type classes provided the ability to sidestep this requirement and trick scrolls. As an assassin, Solution had a number of thief-type classes that allowed her to use the Heal scroll. First, I'll make sure she is comatose. Then Solution prepared a compound combining a strong sleep-inducing anesthetic with a muscle relaxant and moved over to where the woman lay. 26 Mid-Fire Moon, August 7:37 p.m. Sebas came home with food almost at the exact moment Solution exited the room. Solution held a steaming bucket in each hand. Each bucket contained towels. The hot water had turned black and the towels were dirty. This showed what an unkempt state the woman had been in. Thank you, Solution. It looks like the treatment went all right. Yes, we finished with no problems. She didn't seem to have any other clothes, so I dressed her in something that was lying around. I hope that's all right with you. Of course, that's fine. Very well. The anesthesia should have already worn off. If there's nothing else you need me to do, I shall retire. Good work. Solution bowed and walked past Sebas. After watching her go, Sebas knocked on the door. There was no answer, but he could sense someone moving around inside. He quietly pushed open the door. Sitting up on the bed was a girl who looked extremely dazed, perhaps because she had recently woken up. He practically mistook her for someone else. Her dirty, disheveled blonde hair was now clean and glossy. Her hollow cheeks had filled out with unbelievable speed in such a short time. Her dry, chapped lips now also glowed a healthy pink. The word charming fit her better than beautiful when appraising her overall looks. It was possible to get some idea of her age. She was probably in her late teens, but her difficult life weighed heavier than her years on her face. Solution had dressed her in a plain white negligee. It had as little frills and lace as possible. I think you're fully healed, but how do you feel? There was no answer. Her vacant eyes didn't have the will to look up at Sebas, but he continued speaking without worrying about that. He hadn't been expecting much at first. He knew her empty expression indicated she wasn't mentally present. "Are you hungry? I brought you some food." Ed bought an entire meal from a restaurant, including the dishes. The porridge in the bowl had been made with a light-colored broth. Sesame oil added for flavor gave it an appetizing scent. Reacting to the smell, the girl's face twitched slightly. "Then here you go." So she wasn't completely locked away in her own world, thought Sebas as he held the bowl with a wooden spoon out to her. The woman didn't move, but Sebas didn't press her either. After long enough to annoy any third party present, she slowly moved her arm. She was frightened of pain, so her motion was stiff. Her physical wounds had completely healed, but vivid memories of suffering still remained. She grasped the wooden spoon and scooped shallowly into the porridge. Then she brought it to her mouth and ate it. The porridge, made with 10 parts water, was runny. It wasn't even necessary to chew. Sebas had requested that the 14 ingredients be cut up extremely small. Her throat rose and fell as the porridge traveled to her stomach. Her eyes shifted a bit. It was a truly slight movement, but it was the change from an elaborate doll to human. Her other hand, shaking, took the bowl from Sebas. Sebas kept his hands against hers and moved the bowl to where he thought she wanted to put it. She plunged the wooden spoon into the bowl and wolfed down the porridge without stopping. Her eating was incredibly rushed. If the food hadn't been cooled to an appropriate temperature, she would have certainly passed out from the burns. She paid no attention to the liquid dribbling out of her mouth onto the front of her negligee. Drinking was the best description for how she attacked her meal. She finished quickly, at a speed incomparable with her previous movements. Then she sighed, still holding the bowl. Now that she had become a person, her eyelids grew heavy and began to close. The effects of her full stomach, fresh and comfortable clothing, and her own clean body combined to relax her mind. A wave of sleepiness overcame her. But the moment her eyelids lowered, they popped back open, and she cringed in fear. Was she scared to close her eyes, or fearful her current situation was an illusion that would disappear, or was there some other reason? Sebas watched from beside her. He didn't know. It was possible she didn't know herself. So Sebas spoke to her gently to calm her down. "Your body must want rest. It would probably be good for you to take it easy and get some sleep. You are not in danger here, I guarantee it. When you open your eyes, you'll still be in this bed." For the first time, her eyes moved to Sebas' face. Her blue eyes didn't contain much light or energy. However, they were no longer those of a corpse, but of a living thing. She opened her mouth slightly and closed it. Then she opened it again. She closed it once more. She repeated this several times. Sebas kindly watched. He certainly didn't hurry her up. He just gazed at her silently. Eventually her lips parted. A tiny voice squeaked out. The next words came bit by bit. Then Ku. The first words out of her mouth were not to confirm her situation. They were to express her gratitude. Feeling like he had grasped a hint of her personality, Sebas did not wear his usual fake smile. He wore a genuine one. "Don't worry about it. Since I found you, I'll do everything in my power to guarantee your safety." The girl's eyes widened just a bit. Then her mouth trembled. Her blue eyes became wet. Then they overflowed with tears. She opened her mouth wide. She started genuinely sobbing. Soon the curses began to mix in with the weeping. She cursed her fate. She detested the ones who had served her that fate, and she resented the fact that help hadn't come sooner. The latter was also aimed at Sebas. She blamed him, thinking, "If only you had saved me sooner." Upon receiving Sebas' kindness, at being treated like a person, whatever was inside her, enduring everything for all this time, had broken. Or perhaps it's more correct to say that because she regained a human heart, she could no longer bear the memories of all the things she'd been through. She clawed at her head, audibly ripping out her hair. Countless golden threads curled around her slender fingers. The porridge bowl and the spoon fell onto the bed. Sebas watched her fit in silence. Her bitter comments at Sebas were inaccurate and nothing more than spreading blame. Some people might have taken this badly and gotten angry, but Sebas' visage bore no trace of ire. His lined face was, on the contrary, compassionate. Sebas leaned over and held her. It was a hug like that of a father for his daughter, with no ulterior motives, containing nothing but love. For a moment she stiffened, but sensing the way he held her was different from the men who had devoured her up until now. Her frozen body relaxed slightly. "You Ray okay now?" He chanted those words over and over like a spell, gently patting her back. It was like he was comforting a crying child. She sobbed for a moment. Then, as if Seba's words had sunk in, she buried her face in his chest and cried some more. But these tears were a little different from before. Time passed, and when Seba's chest was completely soaked, the young woman finally stopped crying. She slowly moved away from him and lowered her head to hide her red face. "Ah, sorry. Please don't worry about it. It's an honor for a man to lend his chest to a woman." Sebas took a fresh, clean handkerchief out of his breast pocket and offered it to her. "Please use this. But I can see something." This beautiful Sebas placed a hand on the timidly hesitating girl's chin and brought her face up. While she was still frozen, wondering what had happened, he gently wiped her eyes and brushed the tear streaks from her cheeks. "Oh yeah," Solution was saying she recently had a long message conversation with Sholtia. Apparently, she was bragging she had her tears wiped. Under what circumstances did their master attend to her crying? He was puzzled, since he couldn't even imagine Sholtia weeping, but his hands didn't stop. Before long, he had finished wiping the young woman's face. "Oh, okay, here you go." He pressed the slightly damp handkerchief into her hand. An unused handkerchief is a pitiful thing, especially one that never gets a chance to brush away tears. He smiled at her and moved away. "Now then, have a good rest. We'll talk about what happens next when you wake up." Magic was versatile. Solution's treatment had helped the woman's body make a full recovery. Her mental exhaustion was also completely gone. She would probably even be able to function normally right away. But mere hours earlier, she had been in hell. He feared a lengthy discussion would cause her mental wounds to reopen. Actually, she was not yet psychologically stable. Her earlier outburst was evidence enough. Magic could soothe a mind for a limited time, but it couldn't treat the root issues. It might have been able to heal her physical injuries, but it couldn't heal her deep invisible wounds. As far as Sebas knew, only his master and maybe Pestonia could fully heal her mental wounds. Sebas tried to get her to rest, but she spoke, bewildered. What next? He wasn't sure if it would be okay to continue the conversation, but she seemed to be in a talking mood, so he went on, watching her condition closely. "You probably don't feel safe staying in the royal capital. Is there anyone you can rely on?" She looked down. "I see, of course there wasn't anyone," he thought. That was a problem, thought Sebas. But surely there was no need for them to take immediate action. It was just a hopeful observation. He wanted to believe they didn't need to rush, at least until she regained her strength. "Okay then, may I have your name?" "Oh, I am Tsuya." "Tsuya? Oh, that's right. I haven't told you my name yet, either." "My name is Sebas Tian. Please call me Sebas. I'm the owner of this mansion, and I serve Lady Solution." That was the story. Solution constantly wore a white dress, not a maid uniform. She did this in case a sudden visitor should call. But when Tsuya was around, Sebas would advise Solution to act more like the mistress of the house to keep up appearances. La Solution. Yes, Lady Solution Epsilon, although I don't think you'll see her very often. She's rather ill-tempered. Sebas closed his mouth as if he'd said all there was to say about her. Then after a short silence he spoke again. "Okay, please rest well for today. We'll discuss your future tomorrow." "Okay." After making sure she had lain down, Sebas retrieved the empty porridge bowl and exited the room. As expected, right when he opened the door, Solution was standing there. She had probably been eavesdropping, but he didn't reprove her. Solution showed no sign of expecting a scolding, either, hence her standing there in plain sight, with no attempt to conceal her presence. With her assassin classes, she should have been able to hide more skillfully. "What is it, Master Sebas? What have you decided to do with her?" Sebas was conscious of the door behind him. It was a sturdy barrier, but it wasn't completely soundproof. If they talked here, she would be able to partially hear them. Sebas set off walking, and Solution silently followed him. They stopped when he felt sure the sound wouldn't reach Tsuya's ears. "You mean Tsuya, right? I am thinking we'll decide what to do tomorrow. You know her name?" She made no further comment on the subject, but pulling herself together said, "I apologize for being presumptuous, but I believe that human will be a hindrance. We should dispose of her as soon as possible." What does she mean by dispose? Hearing her brutal choice of words, Sebas couldn't help but suppose that this was the most correct way for those who belong to Nazarick to think about those outsiders. way Sebas treated Tsuya was truly unusual. You're right. We need to immediately deal with anything that prevents us from following Lord Aintz's orders. Solution looked mildly puzzled. Her expression said, if you understand that why are you, she might be of use to us. I picked her up, so I shouldn't discard her so easily. Try to think of a way to use her to our advantage. Master Sebas, I don't know where or for what purpose you picked her up. But those types of injuries indicate a certain kind of environment. The people who did those things to her probably want to be pleased she's alive. That's no problem. You mean you already disposed of them? No. But if a problem does arise, I'll deal with it in one way or another. So I'd like you to just keep an eye on her. Okay, Solution? Understood. Solution swallowed the slight irritation welling up in her as she watched Sebas leave. Even if she was extremely dissatisfied by his answers, he was her direct superior, so she couldn't say anything.